And so what I want to talk to you about are 9 subversive lies that are holding you back. Okay? Now, when you look at this monkey picture, and it looks kind of funny and stuff, the little monkey and the other monkey's holding its tail, and it says, is there something holding you back, right? And so a lot of times we like to think that other people are holding us back, but in reality, I want to share something with you. I'm not sure if you're aware of it or not, but elephants, when they're young and they're trained, what they actually do is they take a chain or a rope and they tie it around their leg, and they tie it to a post, something that's immovable, and it prevents them from going anywhere. So what happens is they're kept on that for such a period of time, such a duration, that no kidding, these elephants think that anytime there's a chain attached to their leg that they can't move. Okay, so that means that later down the line there could be nothing preventing that elephant from moving, but because that chain is on their leg, because they've been mentally programmed to believe that if the chain is there they can't move, then they won't go anywhere. They will sit there and they will stay there because of that chain. Now, it sounds crazy, right? But in reality, it's not the case of the monkey holding other monkey's tail, pulling them back. In this case right here, which is more often than not the case, is that we hold ourselves back because of what it is that we think consciously and what we think subconsciously. Because really, our thoughts become actions, which become habits, which become lifestyles. And of course, that's the fruit in our life. That's what we experience. So we're going to talk about these 9 subversive lies that are holding you back, because really these are things that you absolutely must overcome and totally annihilate in order to get where it is that you've been called and what is your destiny, your greatness. So the first one that I want to talk about is you think you don't know enough. Okay, this is something that is perpetrated by society, that people don't know enough, that they're not good enough, and that they have really nothing to offer. And so because of that, what they do is they think, okay, well, what do I have to do? What could I do? Right? Because society is always pretty much telling people you're not good enough, this and that. I mean, look at what's out there with young women, with men. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. Women think they need to be, stick figures, and men think they need to be sleeping around with everybody, and all these just foolish things that are perpetrated by society. And now I'm not saying it's everybody. Of course, that's not what I'm saying. But for the most part, there are these lies, and so people think, they're not good enough and they don't know enough. And really, that is so far from the truth that it's absolutely it's very sad, it's heartbreaking, it's heart-wrenching, and it's a lie from the pit of hell. Okay, now, in fact, most folks who are very successful are not those people that are extremely have a high IQ or any of those things at all. What it is, there are people who actually go out there and take action using what it is that they know, using those natural gifts, talents, and abilities that God has given us, and going out there into the marketplace. The second thing is you think you don't deserve it. Okay, so I remember a time where somebody was ready to pay me $147 an hour. Okay, $147 por hora. Okay, 147 smackaroos, greenbacks, dineros per hour for me to help them out. Okay, well, guess what happened? I thought that I didn't deserve it. Now you're thinking, okay, well, how stupid, how crazy is that? Hey, I'm telling you, I know that's stupid, I know that's crazy, but guess what? That's what I thought subconsciously, because I had a certain standard, a certain mindset that I believed, that I thought, was, the real deal. And so that was my reality. And so I self-sabotaged. Now, the good news is I realized what it was. I got that junk out of my mind, and no kidding, as soon as I was ready for somebody to pay me a lot of money, it was like 2, maybe 3 days later, once I said, oh wow, you know what, I do deserve to get paid a lot of money for helping people out. No kidding, $275 an hour. And so literally, all this time, I was the only one that was stopping myself. I was that elephant that had that chain, and I was stopping myself. I was in my own self-imposed prison. And so chances are, if you don't have any money, you probably think that you don't deserve it. The third one, this one is huge, 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 right? So you think that you need a college degree. Now, society, school teaches what? Go to school, get good grades, go to college, get your degree, get a good job, you're taken care of for life. Well, that is a big, fat, absolute lie. That's another lie from the pit of hell. Of course, this is perpetrated by society, and if we need to look at, what the reality, what the truth is of this, all we have to do is sit there and look. How many folks are out there that actually have college degrees, but they don't know how to make money. They don't know how to create income. They don't know how to do that. They're out of work. They're on unemployment for massive amounts of time, and they have these college degrees because, the bottom line is that you don't need a college degree. You absolutely don't need a college degree. And I know that maybe right now that might be going against everything that you think, and there's something within you, but it's because you've been trained, you've been indoctrinated in that to think that and to believe that. Remember, now, I'm talking to you about 9 subversive lies from the pits of hell, from the gates of hell, that are not true, that will hold you back. So if you think you need a college degree, guess what? You're going to go out and get a college degree. I know somebody right now, no kidding, that is a phenomenal artist, and they're going to school, going to college. And they could be making so much money online, but they don't believe in themselves. They're afraid. That's really what it is. And so they're going to end up with all this massive debt. This time in their life is going to be wasted. And they're going to be behind the power curve. And the fact of the matter is that they really even know that they have this ability, but they're not doing anything with it because it's fear. Fear is holding them back. Okay? So you absolutely do not need a college degree to be successful. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some things where, perhaps maybe you might, but for the most part, it's absolutely not true at all, okay? It's not true. For example, when I was in the Marine Corps, we go to our MOS, Military Occupational Specialty Training School, and then we get out there into the fleet operating forces where, no kidding, the rubber meets the road, the boots hit the ground, we got our feet on the deck. And so what happens is you get taught one thing, but then you get out there and it's like, okay, now you need to be taught what really happens, what really needs to be done. And so that's the same thing, right? And even if you think you're going to school for management or business, half of these schools, most of these schools don't even teach you a single thing about what it is that you need to do to be successful, because they're taught by a lot of people who have nothing more than a bunch of ideas. They've never actually gone out there and executed it, okay? Now, how do I know that? Because I've been in college. Even though I do have a degree and I've got massive amounts of college credits, none of that stuff has contributed really to anything that I've been able to do online and helping people. It really hasn't. In fact, I was going through college. I was attending a, quote, quote, great school, and I ended up dropping out. I dropped out because it was a waste of time. What they're teaching about marketing and stuff was total nonsense, and the folks weren't even interested in listening. When it was even presented tactfully, okay, I'm talking in a tactful manner, they weren't interested in learning about what was actually, no kidding, happening out there in the trenches, live stuff, helping people make money. And so I sat there and said, wow, you know what? Hey, God gave me a brain, and guess what? I'm going to use it, because to not use it would be an absolute travesty. So I say, you know what? It doesn't make sense. Why spend the money? Why waste my time? I'm learning more. This stuff is real. The other stuff is junk. Bam. Dropped out. I had to pay my some of my VA bill back because I dropped out, but you know what? It was one of the wisest decisions that I've ever made, because, no kidding, being able to learn with real stuff where people are actually making money instead of people just, hypothesizing about it and, being very cerebral and very intelligent and having absolutely no experience at all, that just was not the way for me. Fourth, okay, it sounds too good to be true. Okay, so you're thinking right now probably, okay, it sounds to be true, too good to be true, that you can make a lot of money. And what I'm going to tell you about that is that a lot of times, okay, you complete this saying for me, okay? If it sounds too good to be true, it's probably what? Okay? What did you just say? What did you just think? Probably not true, right? Okay? That's another lie from the pit of hell. If it sounds too good to be true, find out and see if it is. Okay? All right? There's a study that was done. These scientists took these monkeys. They put these monkeys in this confined area with this pole, and on top it had these bananas. Every time the monkeys would try to climb and get to the very top, they would spray the monkeys. Eventually, the monkeys gave up because they got sick and tired of being sprayed. So scientists said, okay, great. Hey, we have an awesome idea. Let's pull out all the monkeys except for one. Let's put a bunch of new monkeys back in with the other group, with the one monkey. and see what happened. So every time the new monkeys would try to go up and get the bananas, the monkey that had been there a long time would pull them down, would do whatever it had to do to stop them from climbing. And guess what happened? Eventually, all the monkeys stopped trying to climb up and get the bananas. Okay? Now, it wasn't because the monkey thought that, was trying to be evil or bad or anything. It associated climbing that tree, climbing that pole with danger and harm, so it stopped everybody else, okay? So again, whoever made this up, if it sounds too good to be true, it's probably not true. I mean, whoever made that up? I mean, does that really make any sense? If it sounds too good to be true, it's not true, okay? So let's think about that for a second, okay? Right now, you're sitting here, you're watching this on your computer, okay? And you could be anywhere around the world. Okay, now let's just back up a little bit. Okay, so 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, if somebody was to sit there and say, okay, hey, there's something that's coming down the road, and it's possible for people to be able to sit there in their house and communicate with people across the globe. And oh, by the way, you can send messages, you can create videos, and you probably even be able to watch this on a little thing in your hand called a cell phone. People say, oh, sounds too good to be true. It's probably not true, right? Okay, but somebody sat there and dared to be different. Somebody sat there and said, you know what? I can see it, I can perceive it, and I know it's possible. And they didn't stop, they didn't quit until they manifested it, until it was created. Okay? So everything that is created that's out there has come from ideas. So if it sounds too good to be true, it's probably not true, is a lie from the pit of hell. There's so many things that are out there that people don't even attempt because they think that that's the case, and they just hold themselves back, again, like that elephant. Number 5. You're afraid of what others think, okay? The bottom line is, as I went on this journey here, I'm telling you, from, the position of, my ex-wife to family members, friends, relatives, loved ones, I mean, you better believe they thought I was crazy. Why do you want to get out of the Marine Corps after 14 years? I mean, hey, just stay in 6 more years and you can retire and you'll be taken care of for life, okay? So, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to sit around and just suck up air just to collect the money. I mean, that's not who I am. And I had to, no kidding, get past what other people thought. I mean, and you're going to have to go get past what other people think of you. Because if not, you're going to, in the immortal worlds of Macho Man Randy Savage, you're going nowhere. Because it's the truth. You have to be able to know what it is that you're called to do, where it is that you're going, and totally ignore, put your blinders on like a racehorse, right? Like Secretariat, and focus on your destination and run your race as hard as you possibly can, regardless, of what other people think, because it just does not matter. Number 6, you think money is evil. Okay, you think having, money is bad. It's okay for everybody else to have money, but you think, having money is bad. People start talking about money. Perhaps, all these people do is talk about money. Okay, or, having money is not necessarily a good thing. Well, the thing that I can tell you is that money is not evil. In my favorite book, the Bible, it says it is the love of money that is the root of all evil. Now, money is amoral. That means it is neither good nor bad. It is like a wrench. How do you choose to use that wrench? How do you choose to use that money? Are you going to choose to use it for good, or are you going to choose to use it for evil, for ill? The choice is up to you. Now, chances are, if a person thinks money is evil, guess what they're not going to have? Guess what you're not going to have if you think money is evil? Probably not going to have money, because consciously or subconsciously, you're going to do things that will push that money away. You will mess up that flow of abundance into your life. You absolutely will. Now, if you think that God does not want you to be blessed, you are absolutely incorrect. You're absolutely incorrect. Why? Because in the Bible it says that Jesus came so we might have life and have life more abundantly. Abundance means having more than enough. And when you have more than enough, you're able to help out other people. Now, the other part of it is it says to remember the Lord your God, for it is He who has given you the ability to create wealth. Okay? God has given us, you, me, the ability to create wealth. Why? To help out other people. Okay? It's pretty hard, pretty challenging to help out, to create, build schools, ministries, foundations, scholarships, roads, homes, provide clothing, all these things for people when there's no money. It is very difficult. And you know what? I'm sure the devil is happy as a pig in slop, laughing at people who think that God doesn't want them to be wealthy, right? The other part, if we look in the Bible, it also says that God said to do what? Be fruitful and multiply. He didn't say be stingy and not grow. So Be fruitful and multiply. And again, these things are all things that you have to be able to embrace and you have to bypass. They're like little checkpoints, if you will, that you have to be able to pass through, in order to get where it is that you're going, where it is that you've been called to do. And if not, guess what? You're going to have to go all the way back to go around the mountain. And that's not fun. It sucks. I've done that, and it's not a good time at all. Number 7, afraid of failure. Okay? This is something that has been ingrained in us since tiny years. Tiny years going into school. You look at kids, they go into school, they're excited, they're motivated, they're happy, and then they come out, they graduate 12 years later, and it's a complete opposite thing. It's just complete opposite. Don't want to raise your hand, don't want to ask questions, don't want to do anything because you're afraid how you're going to look, what other people are going to think. Don't want to fail. And in reality, failure is not permanent. Failure is only permanent if you don't ever try again. So for example, if you have a bike and you just, you fall down the first time and you never get back on a bike, that is failure. That means that that's what it is, right? And so, it's one of those things that failure is the price that you have to pay to achieve success, okay? Just think about it this way. You have to fail. You have to fail because there's nobody that is perfect except for one, and his name was Jesus. And so that means failure means getting something wrong. But when you get something wrong, you do what? You get new information. So once you get that new information, you do what? You make a different decision. So it helps you get closer to where it is that you're going. Did you know that when people fly in a plane, they're off course 90% of the time? So what does that mean? That means that as they're flying and they get closer to their target, they do what? They're adjusting. And so that's the thing that you and I have to do. We have to be able to fail hard and fail fast. And it's something that, because we've been taught, has become a part of our subconscious and conscious mind, and we have to get used to failure. We have to love failure and understand that failure, what we do with failure is up to us. Are we going to use it as a stepping stone, or is it going to be a lethal blow that is going to completely stop somebody from taking further action and just completely paralyze them? Now, the other thing that I want to mention too is, people say, I don't know where to start. So because they don't know where to start, they don't do anything. They don't do anything. And why is that so deadly? It's deadly because they don't ever take action. And again, in order to fail, you got to take action. I mean, people can sit all day long and rub their heels together, sing 5 kumbayas or whatever it is and pray to God and all this stuff. But guess what? If you don't take any action, nothing's going to happen, because faith without works is dead. I'm going to say it again. Faith without works is dead. So if you don't know where to start, the first thing you need to do is sit there and make a decision. You know what? I want to do something different. And then what do? You know what the result is, where you want to go, and you just start taking action. And you start failing. And you fail your way until you get where it is that you want to be. Now, number 9. This is a big one. Okay? This is something that I struggled with massively. Okay? You think that you've got to be perfect. So in other words, if you sit down, here's how you can self-diagnose yourself. If you sit down to start writing, and as you start writing, you won't write a full sentence without correcting it, or whether it's the spelling or whether it's the verbiage, and you just find yourself sitting there, you've got this disease, okay? That you've got to be perfect disease. And in school trains and teaches and instills that in us, and it's horrible, because it programs people really to never be successful. Because instead of sitting there, here's an example. When a bodybuilder, wants to put on more muscle, what they typically do is they'll bulk up. They put on a weight, and then what they'll do is they'll go back and they'll cut down. They'll cut down their fat, and they'll get more fine-tuned, more chiseled with their appearance, okay? And so it's the same thing. When you sit there and write, literally what I call it is you sit down, you write, you puke up everything that's in you, and then you go back and you cut down the fat. So it's no different. And of course, this is something that I even still remind myself and program myself, because it is so deeply ingrained in us. It is so deeply ingrained in us with the thought that you have to be perfect, or if you don't have something amazing to produce right away, don't even start it. Don't put it out there. Well, that's wrong, because people are not going to take action. You're not going to take action. You're not going to fail. You're not going to get new information, and without even taking the shot, like Wayne Gretzky would say, you miss every shot you don't take. An example is there's a community center here locally. And one of the things that I like to do is I go there and I'll shoot the basket from all over the place. I mean, places that people would just think is absolutely ludicrous. Now, how do I know that? You can watch their face, their mannerisms. And, why do I do that? I do that because it allows me to face fear, number one, and failure at a level that I can program and train my mind, my subconscious, that it's okay to fail. Because you know what? When I shoot and I do hit those baskets, I know it's almost like, Michael Jordan doing the fist pump, because it's one of those things that's been almost like, unimaginable, but somehow, because I keep trying and I keep moving forward, it goes in, and it's just like, it's absolutely amazing. And I know that the times that I do miss, that, no kidding, that's just that's part of it. That's just part of what it is that I'm, doing, right? So if you're enjoying this, if you're getting a lot of value, if you think that, you're seeing some of these things in your own life or perhaps in people around me, just go ahead and raise your hand. Okay? All right. So for the most part, I mean, I think everybody is either seen one of these in their life or in people around them, if not more, right? Absolutely. Absolutely. This is so powerful. And again, these are 9 lies, 9 subversive lies from the pit of hell, the pit of Hades, that will stop you from getting where it is that God has called you, accomplishing and getting to your destiny in life. Now that we talked about those 9 subversive lies from the gates of the pit of hell, I want to talk to you about 3 steps to create income on demand. I mean, how many of you would like to be able to, no kidding, be able to create money on demand whenever you want? I mean, does that sound too good to be true? Just type it in the chat box. Okay? It might sound too good to be true. So do you think you should just shut down, or what did I already teach you? If it sounds too good to be true, what do? Find out for yourself, right? Okay? Remember, we got the most powerful supercomputer in the world, but depending on what we put in it, it affects what is going to come out of it. So 3 steps to create income on demand. No kidding, a blueprint. So let me ask you this. If you need money, you better get a... it's almost like I could hear you saying it, a job, right? You need to get a job. But why is that? Why is that? Now, because that's what people do? Because that's what you've been told? Yeah, because we have been ingrained and indoctrinated in society that if you need money, you better get a what? A job. You better get a job. Okay? But let me ask you this. How is money created? The printing press. Yeah, okay. So, people roll off money off the printing press. They plant trees. Okay. So, what? Let me ask you this. Why does your employer pay you? Why do they pay you? Because you show up to work on time? Okay. All right, different things. All right, okay. All right, so do they pay you for your time? So let me ask you this. When a fireman goes to a burning house, what are they there to do? When a fireman goes to a burning house, what are they there to do? They're there to solve a problem. Okay? They're there to solve a problem. Now, let me ask you this. Do you think anybody whose house is burning, if the firemen show up, they're going to say, what was your GPA? What was your grade in Spanish class? What was your college degree in? No, they don't care. They don't care about that stuff. All they want you to do is solve their problem. They want you to put the fire out. Now, how come some people get paid more in an hour than others? Okay. All right. It's not because they got a degree. It's not because of any of that stuff. No. Go ahead, keep typing in the chat box. Let me see. I want you to think. Okay. So the reason that they get paid more is they're solving bigger and or more problems. They're solving bigger and or more problems. Now, let me ask you, how do you create money? Okay? Go ahead and type it in the chat box. How do you create money? Okay. So By solving problems. Excellent, excellent. That is excellent. Now, how do you create more money? Solving bigger and or more problems, right? Solving bigger and more problems. Now, here is the blueprint. That if you master this, you master creating wealth on demand. This is very, very powerful. So the first thing you want to do is you want to find problems. Okay, so how do you find problems? Well, you look, you listen, and you listen to your gut as well, to your spirit. Okay, you can look in newspapers, you look in magazines, you're looking on the internet. I mean, you can listen to people talk. You can, observe with your eyes. I mean, there is just massive amounts of problems in this world when you start to look at them and start to take notice. Now, number two, the second step, you want to identify solutions to that problem, that either you have or leverage the solutions, of other people. Okay, so let me say it again. Okay, you want to use what it is that you know, your unique gifts, talents, and abilities, or either or both and, leverage the gifts, talents, and abilities of other people. Okay, so you don't necessarily need to know everything. You absolutely don't know. But what you do need to know is somebody who knows how to solve the problem, right? Okay, you might not be a plumber, but guess what? If your toilet's clogged up, what do? You call a plumber. I mean, it's just that simple, right? Now, number three, once you identify the problem, once you find a solution, okay, so you come into an agreement with the problem holder. You come into an agreement with them and you solve their problem. So the result is moolah, dinero. Okay, it's just that simple. All right, so let me just talk about it a little bit again. Okay, so what do? First thing we want to do is what? We want to find problems. They're all over the place. Then we want to identify solutions to the problem that either you have or you want to leverage the solution capabilities, the gifts, talents, and abilities of other people. Then what you do is you marry them up. You come into an agreement, right, with the problem holder, and you solve the problems. Okay, and the reward is what? It's money. It's so simple. So now let me ask you this: did they teach you that in school? No, right? They didn't teach me that in school. What did they teach me? Go to school, get good grades. Go to college, get good grades. Get good job, you'll be taken care of for life. Big fat lie. Horrible lie. They didn't teach me that in school. It's just it's a shame. Okay. Now let me ask you this: with the right training, it's pretty simple, isn't it? I'm sure you recognize that man right there, Albert Einstein, right? I just saw this and I thought it was so funny. Okay, and the funny thing about it is people thought that he was so simple, so mundane, yet in his simplicity, he was extremely brilliant. And so what I want to say is that we make things harder a lot of times than what they need to be. We do, because of faulty programming, and of course, it becomes more like that elephant.